In this demo, we will be doing a variety of things, basically from texturing to show how the sketch is done efficiently, and we're going to start basically with several elements. For example, in this scenario, we are going to do glass texture. So again, I've already pre-planned some of the elements that I'm drawing, and at the same time, what I'm trying to achieve is to show students how to render some of these different elements on the same shape, on the same surfaces, but with different textural elements, and these can be applied to your sketching techniques. These can be applied to your drawing elements. So at the end of the day, that's what we are trying to achieve to get the best effect. So with glass, there's usually a lot of reflection. There's usually a lot of bounce light also. Again, my setting is, I'm assuming that these elements are set up on a generic situational lighting, right? So basically, these things are overall demo to show you how to sketch and how to use techniques of elements that you can apply to your sketching scenarios, whether you're drawing hard surface, whether you're drawing organic surfaces, but this one is more geared towards hard surfaces or anything that's man-made. I'm also going to use, I always ask students to get white Prismacolor or white paint. You could use gouache or acrylic or any other paints that you have. Gouache is kind of nice, but it's expensive. So one of the things with I usually ask students is to use whatever they can or have. With today's market, there's a lot of different elements that are available, but with this whole gloss scenario, also a flat brush or a fine brush, whatever you have, right? These days, art materials are pretty expensive. I try to minimize my list of things that I ask students to purchase, so that your cost effectiveness of the class or the learning curves can be minimized. So I'm using basically gouache that I have, and basically using a flat brush to just create some of these highlights on the surfaces, because as we are doing this the glass scenario, basically those are the things that needs consideration, and also superficial elements to bring up this whole glass effect, right? Because when you're doing some of these things, with a white could be applied to show reflection and to show elements of how the glass texture would look like. So slight hints of stuff of this white usually gets across, right? Again, the surface is almost like a pyramid shape. So because what I'm trying to do is actually drawing this hard surface that it could be front of a car, front of a truck, front of a tank. It's generic. So these are some of the elements that I feel that are effective. So the next one I'm going to do is chrome. And basically, what I like to talk about was chrome. Chrome is, in the vintage days or the good old days, where from the 50s and 60s, even to the 70s, a lot of car bumpers were chrome. And if you look at an older car, you can notice that the chrome literally bounces everywhere because of it absorbs the light, and basically, the light bounces. And the other thing with chrome also, it's gonna the surrounding, right? When you look at chrome, you actually see your reflection. Let's say you step up into a vintage car bumper, you're gonna see a reflection of the surrounding, right? So basically, when you look at all those elements, it's gonna allow you to set those differences, whether chrome and glass is a little different. With glass, as we done early, if you look at a house, right, during the day, your glass is usually dark, right, if that's a house scenario. But with chrome, it reflects the surroundings of what you are doing, what you are, what the surroundings of it is basically. So you have with this one, I basically generically, place it as it could be like an open space, but at the same time also you'll see highlights, you'll see dark areas. And that's what chrome does, because it's reflecting the things that are surrounding the areas. So students need to be aware of these are the elements of chrome. Again, what I'm doing right now is accentuating the dark areas, because this is more of a generic element. So the ideas are to just get across the effect and also what a chrome element would show. Now I'm using a little bit of gouache white again to hint some of the reflective areas. It is not as broad as the glass element. It is more of the hint of the areas that can be effectively seen. So these are elements to notice and also suggest of the elements of chrome. And again, these things are overall simple and can be very, very helpful for students to get effects and also realization. So on the other end now, what I'm going to do is basically wood. So the wood texture, basically as how we see it, is going to be effective. So and wood obviously has a lot of it's more grain, more texture. Some of the things you want to realize is the textural element of getting the wood scenarios done are very, very effective, very crucial. So these are things that to consider as you are dealing with a textural element like wood. Again, the wood grain obviously is there. So when you're doing any of these drawings, textural elements, it always will help you suggest the overall feel of the texture, because what you're trying to do in visual communication is basically you're trying to communicate with your sketches effectively. You're trying to communicate clearly to your audience. So these things are very helpful and discerning, so that students can apply all these things on this, whether it's a hard surface, whether it's an organic surface. There are some similarities, and also there are differences. So I hope students can see that, so that they will notice how and all the effects that can be used as an effective sketch. With a wood grain, obviously, your texturing elements have to be considered, right? On the edges, wood has a more organic flow, so the texturing elements could be a little heavier. And at the same time, it's wood is usually matte more than any gloss or anything, so we try to keep the effects down, and at the same time representing what it is and what it stands for, and you could basically visually effectively communicating with your audience and also with your sketches well enough to translate these elements. Sometimes as I'm drawing, I'm also angling my sketches so that it can be, it's easier for me to sketch on. Obviously, I'm not sketching on a sketchbook, but I'm doing it on just a piece of large brown paper to create better visual communications to students. I'm putting a bit of highlights, not too much because the wood does not glow, but with a sketching element with the brown paper, it helps to show a little bit of light source to basically bring in to your sketch to create a little bit of lighting. A bit more detail to the wood grain to create even more natural effects and also natural elements, so that my sketch can be effective to show. And also using your line weights, right? When we talked about line weights can diverse the line quality, the overall sensibility. So it is very, very important that students also understand doing, and also know how to do those elements that can bring effectiveness to a successful sketch. Thick and thin line weights will always help the overall sketch value. So this is something nice to consider, and also nice to basically remember, because as an element of a sketch.